from the Woodworking Diary. My name is Gasia, and in this video, my friend Josh and I collaborated together to build this Chevron split top bench and bring you an awesome video. I hope you enjoy it. I started this build with a scrap piece of 1/2-inch plywood from my lumber rack. I will use this as a backer board for my Chevron pattern. I ripped it down to 13.5 inches to bring me to a final dimension of 46.5 by 13.5. Now that I have my backer board ripped to final width, I find the center and I mark a line. I use my square to mark my 2 reference points for the Chevron pattern. I set my backer board aside and started milling my 3/4 inch pine boards. If you don't want any hairline cracks or gaps in your Chevron pattern, I would recommend that you mill these boards. However, I'm skipping that process and I'm just going to clean up one edge on the joiner so that way I could run it against my table saw fence. I decided to make each board 3.5 inches wide. So I set the fence on my table saw and I ripped all my boards to width. In order to make the Chevron pattern, I need a 45-degree miter on the end of each board. You could do this using the miter gauge on your table saw or the compound miter saw. I use my reference lines to lay the Chevron pattern. I create a solid top by attaching each piece to the backer board using a liberal amount of wood glue. I also throw in a couple of pin nails to keep the board in place till the glue dries. After letting the glue dry, I grab my track saw and I clean up one side and both ends of the excess material. And I use the table saw to clean up the opposite side. Now that all my ends are trimmed, I could start cutting my frame pieces to rough length at the miter saw. To make the parts for the frame, I have to clean up one edge. I do this by using a China marker to mark the edge, and I clean it up at the joiner. Once all the China marker is removed, I could use that clean edge against my table saw fence. I cut my frame pieces at 1 1/8 inch thick. I install the trim using glue and pin nails. Since I didn't mill any of my Chevron pieces, I have a lot of sanding to do. I start with 80 grit, I work my way up to 150, and I finish at 220. And just like that, we're ready to start building the base for the bench. I lay out all my rough measurements on my kiln-dried 2x4 lumber. Once I got my layout, I cut them to rough size at the miter saw. I mark all the faces that I'm going to joint with a China marker. When all of the base parts are cut to rough length and marked, we start milling the leg pieces. We clean one face and one edge at the joiner until all the China marker is removed. When all of the base pieces are milled, we take it to the table saw to create 1 1/4 by 1 1/4 inch square stock. Now we could cut all of our leg parts to final dimension. I use pocket hole joinery for the base and the legs. For the leg assembly, I clamp them in place to 90 degrees and I secure them using glue and screws. Once I have both my leg assemblies, I use my palm router to ease all of the edges with an 1/8 inch round over bit. To save myself time, I do all of my sanding up to 220 grit before I assemble the base. Once I finish the sanding, I could do the final base assembly. Before I apply any glue, I like to ensure all of the knots and imperfections are on the inside. I use a square to line everything up, and I clamp it in place until the glue dries. Then we remove the clamps once the glue is dry. I clean the top and the base with mineral spirits to prep for the stain and the paint. I use a lint-free cloth to apply my stain and a smooth surface roller to apply my paint. I used a foam brush to apply my finish.
Can y'all really feel it? East Coast feel it, West Coast feel it. Say what? Dirty South, here we go. Can y'all really feel it? East Coast feel it, West Coast feel it. Can you feel it? Dirty South, dirty. Can y'all really feel it?
I attach the base to the top with screws. I create an oversized hole to allow for seasonal wood movement. Thank you for watching. Please like and subscribe if that's something that you do.